Perspective. Alira Vale, royal heir of the Astra Dominion. I was not born with a heart. At least that is what my kind believes. The Astra are taught from the moment we first awaken consciousness that emotion is a defect, an ancient flaw bred out of us generations ago. We are architects of galaxies, rulers of systems, conquerors of species that still cling to instinct and chaos. Love, we are told, is a primitive malfunction. And yet, on the cycle I first saw him kneeling on the crystal floor of my father's palace, something impossible stirred within me. The day the universe changed. The sky citadel of Virax Prime floats above an ocean the color of amethyst. From my balcony, I could see storms forming thousands of spans below, violent, beautiful, perfectly controlled by the climate engines my people built. I stood there as I always did, hands folded behind my back, posture flawless, mind empty of unnecessary thought. That was when I noticed the human. He was alone. Humans are never alone. They are assigned in groups, marked, catalogued, supervised like volatile elements. Yet this one knelt by himself, polishing the transparent floor panels that reflected the stars beneath our feet. His movements were slow, deliberate, not lazy, not rebellious, careful, as if the palace itself were sacred. Curiosity is discouraged among my kind, but it has always been my weakness. I activated my ocular implants, magnifying the scene. His frame was thinner than most labor units. Old scars crossed his arms, some healed improperly, others reopened by time and work. His hair was dark, cut unevenly. His eyes. I paused. Humans were insignificant biologically. That was a fact. So why did his eyes hold such quiet defiance? Not rage, not hatred. Endurance. What slaves are not supposed to have. I descended from the balcony without announcing myself. The guards stiffened immediately, weapons activating with soft harmonic tones. Humans nearby lowered their heads, bodies folding into submission. The kneeling one did not notice me at first. I stopped a single pace away. "Raise your head," I said. My voice echoed across the chamber, calm, resonant, unmistakably royal. He froze. Slowly, reluctantly, he looked up. Our eyes met. The sensation that followed was disorienting. My neural readings spiked, heart rate elevated. Sensory focus narrowed exclusively to him, as if the universe had compressed into a single fragile point. This was not logical. This was not possible. "What is your designation?" I asked, forcing control back into my tone. He hesitated. "My designation was revoked," he said carefully. "They said I no longer required one." Revoked. I had overseen such orders myself in the past. Names stripped to reduce rebellion, identity erased to ensure compliance. I had never considered what it felt like from the other side. I dismissed the guards with a gesture. They hesitated, then obeyed. No one disobeys royal blood. When we were alone, the silence between us felt louder than war. "You may stand," I said. He did not move. "My legs will give way if I do," he replied honestly. Permission to remain kneeling. I should have walked away. Instead, I sat down on the crystal floor in front of him. His eyes widened in shock. Royalty does not sit with slaves. Royalty does not touch the floor. Royalty does not break protocol. And yet, there I was. The question that broke me. "What was your name?" I asked. The question slipped out before I could suppress it. For a long moment, he said nothing. His jaw tightened. His gaze drifted past me, unfocused. Then quietly, "I don't remember." That was the moment something inside me fractured. Not dramatically, not violently. It was subtle, like a hairline crack spreading through crystal. "I remember my mother's voice," he continued, unprompted. "I remember the smell of rain. I remember songs that don't exist anymore. But my name?" He shook his head. "It's gone." The Astra conquer worlds. We do not erase souls. At least that is what we tell ourselves. I should have ended it there. I stood abruptly. "Return to your duties," I ordered. Relief flickered across his face. Relief at survival, not gratitude. Gratitude is beaten out of humans early. It leads to hope. As I walked away, I told myself the encounter was over. It was a lie. That cycle I could not enter stasis. My mind replayed his voice, his posture, the way he spoke of rain as if it were holy. I accessed Earth archives, restricted files I had never cared to review. Blue oceans. uncontrolled weather, music created without mathematical symmetry, chaos, beauty. The beginning of a crime. I returned the next cycle, and the next. Each visit was brief, justified as inspection. Each conversation was carefully limited. Yet with every exchange, the impossible grew heavier inside me. He told me stories of Earth, not of war or defeat, but of small things. Warm sand, shared meals, looking at the sky without knowing what lived beyond it. In return, I taught him our constellations, our myths, stories my people considered obsolete. "Why do you still remember them?" he asked once. "Because forgetting them felt like losing something," I replied before thinking. He smiled. The first human smile I had ever seen directed at me. It was not submissive. It was not fearful. It was gentle. What I became. I began altering his work assignments, ensuring he was never overworked. I restored fragments of human history in the archives and watched him absorb them like a starving being offered sustenance. And somewhere between stolen conversations and forbidden data, I realized the truth. I was no longer observing a slave. I was protecting someone I could not afford to lose. Love is choosing someone, even when the universe tells you not to. That was what he had said. I did not yet know the cost, but I would. I did not recognize myself anymore. The being reflected in the obsidian mirrors of the Sky Citadel still wore the symbols of royal authority, bioluminescent filaments woven into ceremonial armor, sigils of conquest glowing faintly at my throat. But something beneath the surface had shifted. My thoughts were no longer efficient. They lingered. They returned to him. What the Astra call weakness. Among my people, emotion is categorized as noise, static that interferes with purpose. The Astra Dominion survived millennia precisely because we eliminated such interference. We engineered our minds for clarity, precision, obedience to cosmic order. Yet every cycle since I met the human without a name, my internal diagnostics flagged anomalies. Increased neuroplasticity, unscheduled memory recall, voluntary delay of decision-making. I should have reported myself. Instead, I hid the data. That alone was treason. I began to arrange the world around him. It started subtly. I altered his shift rotations so our paths would cross naturally. I reassigned guards known for cruelty to distant sectors. I rerouted nutrient distribution so his rations were sufficient, not generous, just humane. I told myself it was efficiency. Humans functioned better when not broken. That was true, but it was not the reason. The reason was simpler and far more dangerous. I wanted him alive. I wanted him whole. Learning his silence. He spoke little unless spoken to. That was learned behavior, silence as armor. But when I asked questions, truly asked, he answered with careful honesty. "What do humans fear most?" I asked once. He thought for a long time. "Being forgotten," he said, "more than death." I recorded that. It contradicted Dominion psychology. Another cycle, I asked, "What makes humans continue when survival seems illogical?" He smiled faintly. "Hope. Even when we pretend we don't have it. Hope. A concept outlawed in Astra doctrine." When he asked about me, it surprised me the first time he asked me a question. "Do you ever look at the stars," he said quietly, "and wish they were different?" No one had ever asked me what I wished for. Astra royalty does not wish. We command. "I was born among them," I replied. "They are sufficient." He nodded, but his eyes told me he did not believe me. That unsettled me more than defiance ever could. The first forbidden gift. One cycle, I brought him something illegal. A name. It was not his original. Those records were lost, deliberately erased. But it was a human name from Earth's archives. Simple. Strong. "Why are you giving me this?" he asked, staring at the data shard in my palm as if it might explode. "Because existence requires recognition," I said, "and I refuse to let you remain undefined." His hands trembled when he took it. That reaction, that triggered something violent inside my chest. Not pain, purpose, touch. The first time we touched, it was an accident. A maintenance drone malfunctioned, sending a shock through the floor. He lost his balance. Instinctively, I reached out. My hand closed around his wrist. Human skin is warmer than Astra flesh, softer, imperfect. My neural implants flooded with sensory input, too much, too fast. Temperature variance, pulse rhythm, microtremors of fear and restraint. He froze. "So, sorry," he said quickly, pulling back as if burned. I did not release him. For half a breath, the universe narrowed again. Then I let go. That night, I deactivated my sensory dampeners for the first time in centuries. I wanted to remember how that felt. The danger of understanding. As cycles passed, he stopped flinching when I approached. He met my gaze without fear. He even laughed once, a soft sound, startled from him by a memory of Earth I asked him to describe. The sound echoed in my mind long after. I began to understand something terrifying. Humans do not conquer with force. They transform through connection. And I, heir to an empire built on domination, was changing. When the council began to watch. The High Council noticed my absence from political proceedings. They noticed delays in my responses. They noticed my refusal to approve the latest human labor reductions. "Your empathy protocols are degrading," one elder observed during a chamber session. "They are evolving," I corrected. Silence followed. Evolution without authorization is heresy. From that moment, surveillance increased. I knew what that meant. Time was collapsing around us. The question that sealed my fate. One cycle, as artificial night settled over the citadel, he spoke the question I had feared. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. I could have lied. I had lied to entire civilizations. Instead, I said the truth. "Because when I am with you," I said slowly, "the universe feels larger." His breath caught. "You're not supposed to feel that," he whispered. "No," I agreed. "I'm not." What I did not tell him. I did not tell him about the execution protocols for slaves who disrupt royal equilibrium. I did not tell him about the council's growing suspicion. I did not tell him that loving him, whatever this was, carried a sentence more severe than death. Because humans fear being forgotten, and I feared becoming the one who erased him. The beginning of the end. The cycle ended with a message marked Imperial Priority. Illyra Vale is summoned. Human Labor Unit H317 to be isolated pending review. My internal systems went silent. Isolation meant interrogation. Interrogation meant disposal. I looked at him one last time across the chamber, unaware, kneeling under the stars reflected in crystal. And in that moment, I understood the full truth. I did not simply feel something for a human slave. I had chosen him, and the universe would demand payment. The summons arrived without sound. No alarm, no announcement. Just a line of cold imperial code blooming across my inner vision. Human Labor Unit H317 isolated. Royal Heir Illyra Vale required immediately. Isolation. My internal systems attempted to calculate outcomes, probabilities, acceptable losses. They failed. For the first time in my existence, I felt something override logic completely. Fear. What isolation means. Isolation is not confinement. It is erasure in preparation. Humans taken for isolation are stripped of witnesses, records, and relevance. Their existence is reduced to a problem to be corrected. Most never return to labor. Those who do come back, empty. I knew the chamber they would take him to. I had signed its construction orders myself, centuries ago. That knowledge burned. I broke protocol before I reached the council. I should have gone directly to the High Council. Instead, I rerouted my path through maintenance corridors, never meant for royalty. My escort drones attempted to redirect me. I shut them down. The citadel trembled slightly as systems recalibrated around my unauthorized movement. Every step toward him felt like treason. Every step away from him felt like murder. seeing him through glass. The isolation chamber is circular, transparent from the outside. He was already inside, restrained, not violently, but efficiently. Energy fields wrapped around his wrists and ankles, suspending him slightly above the floor. His head was bowed, his breathing uneven. He had not seen me yet. I stopped outside the glass. I could end this. One command, and the chamber would flood with neural suppression. He would forget me, forget his name, forget Earth. He would survive, but he would not be him. My hand hovered over the control interface. I did not activate it. When he looked up, he sensed me before he saw me. Humans are perceptive that way. When his eyes lifted and met mine through the barrier, something twisted in my chest so sharply I nearly lost balance. He did not look angry. He looked relieved. That hurt more than fear ever could. "You came," he mouthed silently. I pressed my palm against the glass. "I'm here," I whispered, knowing he could not hear me. That was when the council arrived. The High Council does not ask questions. They surrounded me in a semicircle, tall, radiant, ancient. Their eyes glowed with judgment, frequencies tuned to detect deception. "A Lyra Vale," the speaker said. "You have compromised Imperial stability." "I have not," I replied automatically. "You altered human labor protocols. They were inefficient. You accessed forbidden historical archives. For educational purposes. You delayed an execution order." Silence fell. Then the speaker said the word that froze the Citadel's air. "Why?" I opened my mouth. No prepared response emerged. So I spoke the truth. "Because he matters." The word that ended my life as I knew it. Matters. Not useful. Not functional. Not strategic. Matters. The council's glow dimmed, a sign of collective shock. "You attribute value to a human slave," one elder said. "Explain." "He is conscious," I said. "He remembers. He hopes. He feels loss. That is not malfunction. That is life." "Life is abundant," the speaker replied. "Order is rare." "He did not threaten order," I said. "We did." Their verdict. They did not argue. They pronounced. Royal Heir A. Lyra Vale is found guilty of emotional deviation, identity contamination, and treasonous attachment. My internal systems began automatic shutdown procedures, fail-safes meant to preserve Imperial integrity by disabling compromised leaders. I fought them. That alone confirmed their judgment. "The human will be executed publicly," the speaker continued. "His death will restore equilibrium. You will witness it." Witness. They wanted to break me. I finally understood humans. As they escorted me away, I looked back at him one last time. He was watching me. Not with fear, with understanding. In that moment, I understood why humans tell stories of sacrifice, why they choose suffering for others, why they cling to love when survival demands cruelty. Because some things are worth dying for, and some things are worth destroying empires for. The night before the execution, they confined me to my quarters, royal in name only. Surveillance fields layered the walls, every system monitored, every thought scanned. They underestimated one thing. I built this palace. I knew its bones. While pretending to submit, I sent whispers through dormant channels, ancient override codes, emergency contingencies, never meant to be used by a single individual. Ships responded. Not many. Enough. What I did not tell the council. They believed I was choosing him over the Empire. They were wrong. I was choosing a different universe, one where love was not a defect, one where no being was born to kneel. The morning of blood and stars. They dressed him in ceremonial restraints. Ornate, symbolic. The execution platform hovered above the violet ocean, visible to millions across the Dominion. I was brought forward, to stand beside the speaker. "You may speak," he told the crowd. As a warning, I looked at the galaxy watching us. Then I looked at him, the human who had no name, and I spoke words that would shatter history. I renounce my title, I said calmly. I renounce my bloodline. I choose him. For half a breath, the universe stopped. Then, the stars began to fall. For a fraction of a cycle, nothing happened. The words I had spoken, I renounce my title, I choose him, hung in the air above the execution platform like a fracture in reality itself. The Astra Dominion had no protocol for this. Royal renunciation was theoretical. Romantic defiance was myth. Love had been engineered out of our species long before my birth. And yet millions across the empire heard me say it. I felt it then, an immense pressure, like the universe drawing a sharp breath. Then, everything broke. The first shot. The speaker moved first. Terminate the human, he commanded. Execution beams powered up around the platform, converging on the restraints that held him suspended above the ocean. The crowd, Astra and enslaved species alike, watched in stunned silence. I did not think. I acted. I unleashed the override. The Sky Citadel screamed. That is the only word that fits. Systems that had never failed began to collapse inward. Gravity fields flickered. Defense arrays spun blindly. Across the Dominion, ships received conflicting commands, ancient loyalty codes clashing with modern authority. And above the execution platform, the energy restraints shattered. He fell. I leapt. Falling is a human thing. I caught him mid-descent. My armor flared, thrusters screaming as we plummeted toward the violet sea. For one impossible moment, we were weightless together. Royalty and slave, alien and human, falling through a sky that no longer obeyed its masters. His arms wrapped around me instinctively. "Illyra!" he shouted. I had never heard my name spoken like that. Not as a title, as a plea. We did not hit the ocean. A stolen vessel tore open space beneath us, containment fields snapping shut just before impact. We slammed onto the deck hard enough to steal breath and thought. The hatch sealed, stars vanished, and the Astra Dominion declared me an enemy of the galaxy. The price of choice. Alarms howled as the ship surged into hyperspace. I lay there for a moment, chest heaving, my systems flickering between damage reports and shutdown warnings. My armor was cracked, my neural lattice burned with overload. But he was alive. That was all that mattered. He pushed himself up, eyes wide, disbelief etched into every line of his face. You destroyed everything," he said hoarsely. "No," I replied. "I revealed it." When the Empire turned its guns inward. The jump did not take us far. Behind us, the Dominion fractured. My override had awakened dormant directives, old alliances, suppressed dissent, entire fleets that had long questioned the ethics of endless conquest. Civil war ignited across star systems. Worlds rose, chains broke. The Council called it chaos. History would call it liberation. And it had begun with a single human who refused to forget who he was, and an alien who learned what that meant. The quiet between battles. We fled beyond mapped space to regions the Dominion had deemed inefficient to conquer. There, among unfamiliar constellations, we hid. He slept for long cycles at first. Trauma does that to humans. I watched over him, monitoring every breath, every shift in heart rhythm. I had watched over fleets before. This was different. When he woke, he reached for me without thinking. I did not pull away. The truth I finally gave him. "You could have erased me," he said one cycle, voice quiet in the dim cabin light. "You knew that." "Yes." "You could have lived, ruled, forgotten." "Yes." He looked at me then, not as a slave looks at a master, not even as a survivor looks at a savior, but as one equal measures another. "Why didn't you?" I placed my hand over his heart. "Because," I said, "when you remembered who you were, you taught me who I could become. What the galaxy became. The war lasted decades. I did not fight at the front. I became something else, a symbol the Dominion could not erase. An alien empress who chose love over order. a traitor who exposed the lie at the heart of perfection. A reminder that even gods can change. Human worlds rose again, not as subjects, but as allies. The Astra Dominion survived, but it was never the same. Neither was I. Under unfamiliar stars. We settled on a quiet planet far from imperial lanes. Its sky was not blue like Earth's, nor violet like Vyrix Prime's. It was something new. At night, we lay beneath it together, watching constellations no empire had named. "You know," he said once, smiling softly, "humans used to believe love could move mountains." I traced the lines of his face, memorizing them in ways no data archive ever could. "They were wrong," I replied. He raised an eyebrow. "It moves galaxies." History would record my choice as the spark that burned an empire. But in the end, it was something much smaller that changed everything. A name remembered, a hand held, a heart once engineered away, rediscovered. And that, I have learned, is the most dangerous force in the universe.